The call that came after death, Part 1. The night was suffocatingly still. The kind of stillness that presses against your ears until every heartbeat sounds like a gunshot. The streets of the small town lay empty under the dim orange glow of streetlights, their flickering casting long, trembling shadows against the cracked pavement. A soft wind stirred the leaves, whispering secrets of the night that no one wanted to hear. Inside a small house at the edge of town, a woman sat on the couch, her hands trembling. Her fingers were wrapped tightly around an old, familiar phone, the kind Nara used to keep glued to her hand. The ringtone began softly, piercing the heavy silence. "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." The woman froze. Her eyes widened as she saw the name flashing on the screen. Nira, her daughter's name. Her daughter who had been gone for almost a year. Her breath hitched. She whispered, "Nira, is that you?" The line went dead before any reply came. Mrs. Morgan, Nara's mother, sat frozen, the phone trembling in her hands. She had called this number countless times over the past year, hoping for some sign, some miracle. But now the impossible had happened. She had heard her daughter's voice, across town. The first of 4 men who had been responsible for that night's horror sat in his room. Derek had received the first call. At first, he ignored it, thinking it was a prank. But when the voice whispered his name, low, broken, unmistakably Nara's, he dropped his phone, staring at it in disbelief. "Do you remember?" The voice said. "I remember everything," Derek whispered to himself, shaking. Sleep eluded him. He tried to distract himself with TV, alcohol, anything to silence the memory. But each time his phone lit up, the name appeared, unknown. And each time, the whisper came back. The second man, Cole, was driving home late at night, the roads empty. His car stereo cut out abruptly, the lights flickered, and the hair on his neck stood on end. Then, from the phone beside him, came a voice so soft it chilled him to the bone. "Cole. You cannot hide." He slammed on the brakes. His hands shook. "Who is this?" A laugh, sharp and brittle, cut through the stillness. A laugh like shattering glass. "Remember the quarry?" Cole looked around frantically. The dark road stretched endlessly, empty. No cars, no houses, just the whisper echoing through his car. He threw the phone out the window in panic. When the car was found the next morning, the driver's side door was wide open, the engine running, and the phone lay in the dirt a few feet away, still ringing. The name flashing on the screen was unmistakable. Nara Mason, the ringleader, had thought he was safe. The others were missing, scared, or dead, but he had erased every trace, every photo, every message. He had destroyed everything that tied him to that night. And yet, at exactly 3:07 a.m., his phone rang. The screen read, "Nara." His hand shook as he answered. "Stop calling me," he whispered. A pause. Silence. Then, "I'm not calling you. Mason, I'm coming home." The line went dead. A slow creak came from the dark hallway behind him. Mason's breath caught. The doorknob rattled. The lights flickered. And for the first time, he felt the presence of something impossible in the room. Something that had been waiting for him. Back at Mrs. Morgan's house, the phone rang again. The line crackled with static, then the voice of her daughter, soft but angry. Mom. They laughed at me. They left me. But I'm not gone. The words were impossible to understand, yet clear in their meaning. Nera's voice was coming from beyond, her anger real, her revenge imminent. Across town. Ray, the quiet one, heard the same whisper in his bedroom. He had tried to tell himself it was a dream, a trick of his imagination. But when the phone rang, and the name appeared, Nera, he couldn't deny it. The line was silent at first. Then the voice, you watched. You laughed. You thought I wouldn't remember. Ray tried to scream, but his voice froze. The line cut abruptly. He was alone in the dark, his heartbeat pounding louder than the wind outside, night after night. The calls continued. Static, whispers, laughter, and sometimes complete silence, all punctuated by the glowing name on the screen. Nera, one by one. The men who had hurt her felt their lives unravel. Their work, their sleep, their friends, all haunted by that voice that would not leave them. Sleep became impossible. Shadows in their rooms grew taller, darker. Every creak of a floorboard became a threat. Every flicker of light, a warning. Mrs. Morgan could only watch from her window, praying, waiting. She did not know how her daughter had reached them, or why the voice was so relentless. All she knew was that Nera's presence was real, unstoppable, and terrifying. Cole disappeared next. Found on an empty road, his car engine running, the phone beside him still glowing. Derek was next, locked inside his apartment, screaming at shadows no one else could see. Ray barely escaped a fire that had mysteriously started in his kitchen. Mason sat alone, paralyzed, watching the door of his empty house creak open, and the calls never stopped. Each ring, each whisper, each static-filled breath brought the same message. I'm not gone, and I will make you remember. By the end of the first week, the town was alive with whispers. Everyone knew what had happened, even if they didn't understand. The air felt heavier, the nights longer, and the fear personal, intimate, inescapable, settled over the town like a shadow. Mrs. Morgan wept silently, clutching the phone, listening for the next call. And when it came, she knew it was not just a voice this time. It was a warning, a promise, a reckoning from beyond, because Nera had returned, and the night had only just begun. The call that came after death Part 2. The town had grown quieter in the days since the first calls. But the silence was uneasy, like the air just before a storm breaks. Nights were longer, heavier, and every shadow seemed alive. Streetlights flickered unpredictably, and every creak of a door or whisper of wind set hearts racing. The 4 men, Cole, Ray, and Mason, had gone into hiding as best they could. But hiding from something like this was impossible. They were not just haunted by memories anymore. They were haunted by the presence of the girl they had left behind. The girl they had thought powerless, gone, forgotten. Derek's descent *. Derek was the first to experience the new wave of terror. After his initial panic, he tried to resume his normal life, but every day became unbearable. At work, The fluorescent lights seemed to hum with her voice. His coworkers noticed him muttering to himself, his eyes darting toward empty corners. At night, he heard the phone ring repeatedly, though the device sat on the counter, untouched. When he finally answered, the voice was sharper, colder, and far more deliberate. You left me, Derek. And now, I'm coming for you. Static filled the line, followed by a whisper of his own name, repeated over and over. Derek tried to hang up, but the phone burned in his hand, as though it were alive. He screamed, dropping it to the floor, but it continued to ring. Sleep became impossible. Even in the daylight, he could hear faint echoes of her laughter, whispers trailing behind every step. He saw her silhouette in reflective surfaces, never fully visible, always watching. Panic grew into paranoia, and soon Derek abandoned his apartment entirely, wandering the streets at night, hoping to escape. Though he knew he could not. Cole's night on the road, Cole's terror, took a different form. He spent nights driving along empty highways, trying to drown the voices with music, with speed, with anything. But no road could hide him. One evening, he saw her at the side of the road, standing in the rain, pale hair plastered to her face, eyes dark and hollow. She raised her hand, pointing directly at him. Cole slammed on the brakes, but when he looked again, the road was empty. Only the sound of his own breathing and the phone's faint ringing remained. He answered, "You can't run. Cole, you never ran for me." The words were soft, almost teasing. Yet somehow, every syllable struck like a hammer to his chest. He tried to hang up, but a static-filled scream erupted through the line. A scream that made him see visions. The quarry, the laughter, her struggling figure, the memory of that night in horrific clarity. Cole drove blindly through the night, tires squealing on wet asphalt. Every time he looked in the rearview mirror, he thought he saw her face reflected, closer and closer. By dawn, he was at the edge of town, shaking, exhausted, and completely alone. His car had stopped in the middle of the road, engine running, doors wide open. The phone lay on the seat, ringing incessantly. The name on the screen, Nara, Ray's fire, Ray's punishment, was subtler, but no less terrifying. The first night the calls reached him, he heard her voice behind every locked door. Shadows stretched unnaturally in his bedroom, bending as if trying to grab him. Then, late one night, a small fire began in his kitchen. Not large, not immediately dangerous, but the flames twisted as if dancing to an invisible rhythm. Ray tried to call the fire department, but every call was cut off. The smoke seemed to whisper, carrying the same cold, accusatory voice. Ray. You watched. You laughed. You thought I wouldn't remember. The fire eventually died down, leaving no damage. Nothing to prove what had happened, except for the smell of smoke and the ringing of his phone. The name, Nara. After that, every reflective surface in his home became a potential threat. Mirrors, windows, even the shiny screens of his devices began showing flashes of her pale face. Wide eyes, lips twisted in a silent scream. The calls came relentlessly, each one revealing more than the last. Mason's isolation. Mason had always considered himself untouchable. He was smart, careful, and had erased all evidence of that night. But Nara's reach was beyond any human reckoning. At 3:07 a.m., Mason's phone rang again. He stared at it, trembling. The screen read, "Nira," he answered. "Hello?" A silence that stretched impossibly long. Then, "You thought you could bury me. You thought I was gone? But I remember everything." The line went dead. A slow creak came from the hallway behind him. Mason's breath caught. The doorknob rattled. He tried to move, but his legs refused to obey. Suddenly, the lights went out. Total darkness. The phone rang again, even though it was lying on the floor, shattered from his earlier panic. He picked it up with shaking hands. "I'm here," the voice whispered. Mason could feel her presence in the room, closer than any shadow, colder than the night air, watching, waiting. He fell to the floor, unable to speak, while the phone continued to ring, glowing like a heartbeat. The town's growing fear, by now. The town had begun whispering about the missing men, the strange events, and the girl's impossible return. Stories spread, a silhouette in the fog, a phone ringing in empty houses, lights flickering with no power source, no one dared to approach the four men. And yet, some who had tried to help had gone missing to neighbors, co-workers, random passers-by. Every attempt to investigate ended with a phone call, a whisper, or a shadow glimpsed at the edge of vision. Mrs. Morgan stayed vigilant. She could not sleep, could not eat, could not even leave her home. She kept the phone close, praying for some sign, some clue. And the calls came for her too, but never with the same fear. Her daughter's voice was faintly hopeful now, but filled with warning. "I am still here. I am still waiting. And when it comes, no one will escape." The first direct encounter one night. Derek, unable to endure the torment any longer, ventured into the forest near the quarry, the place they had hidden the last evidence of their crime. His flashlight flickered as he stumbled over roots, branches scratching his arms. A figure appeared in the distance, pale hair damp with night air, eyes black and hollow, yet somehow familiar. Derek froze. His mind screamed that it couldn't be real, but it was. Nira stepped closer. She said nothing at first, only raised a hand. Then, as he tried to speak, the phone in his pocket rang. He pulled it out. The screen read, "Na era. Derek." Her voice whispered, soft but deadly, "Do you remember me?" Before he could answer, the flashlight flickered and went out. Darkness enveloped him. The voice was all around him, echoing in every direction, moving closer, pressing in on his mind. "You left me. You laughed at me. You thought I would never return." Derek ran blindly through the woods, hearing footsteps that matched his own, yet faster, heavier, closer. Each step brought him nearer to something he could not name, yet feared with every fiber of his being. By the time dawn came, Derek had stumbled out of the trees, trembling, naked fear etched into his face. But he was not alone. Nara's voice followed him, unseen, unyielding, echoing through every phone call, Every shadow. Every heartbeat. Part 2 ending asterisk. The week ended, but terror had only just begun. The 4 men were fractured, afraid, hunted by the girl they had left behind. Every shadow, every creak, every call reminded them of the night they tried to escape their past. Asterisk. Nara's revenge was no longer a threat. It was real. It had begun. And the first act of retribution would not stop until they all faced the consequences of their cruelty. Asterisk. The town slept fitfully, unaware of the horrors building within its quiet streets. But some could feel it. A change in the wind, a shadow in the corner, a whisper through the trees. The call that came after death. Part 3. The town slept uneasily, its streets dark and silent, except for the occasional flicker of streetlights, which seemed to hesitate over cracked sidewalks, as if fearful to illuminate the night. Shadows moved where no shadows should be. Wind whispered through empty alleys, carrying secrets that belonged to no living person. Asterisk. Inside the walls of his apartment, Derek sat in the corner, rocking slightly. The darkness enveloped him, but he could still feel the weight of eyes pressing down on him, unseen, relentless. His phone rang again. The screen flashed, Nira, hands trembling. He answered. Asterisk. Derek. The voice whispered, soft yet merciless. I see you. I see everything. Asterisk. Static filled the line, then a sound that made his blood run cold. Laughter, sharp and brittle, echoing off invisible walls. It wasn't human, yet it carried a memory, a cruelty he had known firsthand. Asterisk. Derek tried to speak, to plead, but the voice cut him off. Asterisk. You thought you could forget me. You thought I was gone. You were wrong. Asterisk. He dropped the phone, but it continued to ring. The walls of the apartment seemed to contract, shadows creeping across the ceiling like crawling fingers. He tried to move, but each step toward the door felt as though he were wading through water. Heavy, sticky, resisting. Cole's hallucinations. Asterisk. Cole, still haunted by the vision of Nura on the side of the road, had returned to his home, desperate for normalcy. But normalcy had vanished. Mirrors reflected not his own face, but Nara's, pale, hollow, and staring with eyes that pierced his soul. Asterisk. At night, the phone would ring incessantly. Each call brought a new horror. Sometimes it was her voice, whispering. Other times, it was silence, punctuated by heavy breathing, footsteps, or the subtle creak of unseen doors. Asterisk. One evening, Cole's neighbor reported screaming from his apartment. When they arrived, the door was locked from the inside. They broke it down. The room was empty. The phone lay on the floor, ringing, displaying Nura. Cole was gone, and faint scratch marks covered the walls, as though someone or something had clawed at the room in a frenzy. Ray's night of fire. Asterisk. Ray's home had become a stage for torment. Shadows stretched across walls, lengthening unnaturally. The fire in his kitchen had returned, stronger this time, dancing in patterns he could not comprehend. Asterisk. A phone rang on the counter. Ray picked it up. Asterisk. Ray. Nara's voice whispered, softer but filled with rage. You laughed. You thought it was a joke. You thought no one would remember. Asterisk. The fire twisted, flames taking the shape of figures, writhing and reaching. Smoke coiled into faces that mocked him. Ray dropped to the floor, covering his ears. But the voice continued, echoing through the room, through his mind, through his very bones. By dawn, the apartment was untouched, no signs of fire, no damage, yet Ray knew it had happened. He could feel it, the presence lingering. Nara was close. Too close. Mason's isolation intensifies. Mason's life had been orderly, controlled, but the calls, the shadows, the hallucinations made control impossible. Each night, the phone rang at exactly 3:07 a.m., sometimes multiple times. The voice on the other end alternated between soft whispers and bone-chilling screams. I am here. You cannot hide. You left me to die. Now you will feel it. Mason barricaded doors, covered windows, even tried moving to a new apartment. Nothing helped. She found him, always. Sometimes her presence was just a shadow in the corner. Other times, it was her voice from the phone, close, intimate, accusing. One night, Mason awoke to see her in the corner of his room, fully visible this time. Pale, drenched in darkness, eyes wide and hollow, staring straight at him. He tried to scream, but no sound came. His phone rang. The screen read, Nara. Her voice closer now than ever. I'm not just a memory, I'm here. I am the consequence of what you did. Psychological breakdown. By now, the men were breaking. Sleep was a luxury none could afford. Shadows whispered. Phones rang continuously. Mirrors, windows, screens all reflected her face, mocking, accusing. Every step outside, every sound, every flicker of light felt like an ambush. Derek stopped leaving his apartment. Cole disappeared entirely, leaving behind only the phone. Ray became a recluse, refusing to sleep, refusing to eat. Mason's sanity frayed with every passing day, the line between hallucination and reality blurring. The town began to whisper of something impossible. A girl who returned from the dead, punishing those who had wronged her. Superstitions grew. Fear settled like a dense fog over the streets. Nara's manipulation. Nara did not need to appear physically. Her power grew stronger with each call, each whisper. She manipulated shadows, light, and sound. The men's own homes became traps. Their phones became her voice. Every night brought new horrors, subtle at first, then more aggressive. Derek one night heard footsteps behind him. The door was locked. He turned, nothing. Then a phone rang. Nira, the voice whispered. Do you see me now? A shadow moved across the wall, stretching unnaturally. Derek tried to flee, but the room seemed to shift, the walls bending. By morning, he was found crouched in the corner, eyes wide, muttering incoherently. Cole's car was discovered abandoned. The phone inside showing a series of calls, all from Nira, at times when he couldn't have made them. Ray's apartment began to display writing on the walls, scratched with unseen hands. Greater than I remember. I am watching. You cannot escape. Mason's reflection in the mirror no longer showed him, it showed her. And in that reflection, she smiled. The first kill, the terror escalated to violence. Cole was found by the side of the highway, lifeless, phone in hand. On it, a final recording, her whisper repeating over and over, asterisk, greater than you cannot hide. You left me, now you are mine. Asterisk. Derek, Ray, and Mason felt the weight of the event. It was no longer just fear, it was inevitability. Naira's revenge had begun in earnest. Asterisk. The men realized there was no hiding, no escape. Every street, every room, every reflection could be a doorway for her. Every phone call was a countdown. Part 3 ending asterisk. By the end of Part 3, the 4 men, or what remained of them, were fractured beyond repair. Their lives were collapsing, their minds unraveling. Naira's presence, once distant, had become immediate. Asterisk. Her revenge was methodical, unrelenting, and unstoppable. The calls, the shadows, the whispers, and the unseen eyes were constant reminders. Asterisk. I am here. I have not forgotten. And soon, you will face the full weight of your actions. Asterisk. The town itself felt the tension. Darkness seemed thicker, shadows longer, and every quiet corner carried the sense of being watched. Asterisk. Naira's plan was far from complete, and the nightmare for Derek, Ray, Mason, and anyone who dared be complicit was only beginning. The call that came after death. Part 4. The nights had grown colder, darker. The wind carried an unnatural chill, slipping through cracked windows and under doors. Streets once familiar now seemed hostile, lined with shadows that crept closer at every glance. Silence had become unbearable, broken only by the ringing of phones and soft whispers echoing from the darkness. Asterisk. The 4 men, Ray, Mason, and the vanished Cole's absence haunting them, were fractured remnants of the people they once were. Sleep was a distant memory. Their days were consumed by paranoia, their nights by terror. And the girl they had left behind, Nora, was no longer content with whispers and phone calls. She was approaching Derek's confrontation. Asterisk. Derek had barricaded himself in his apartment, but the air still felt wrong. Shadows moved against walls, bending impossibly, stretching across ceilings. He could feel her presence, watching, calculating, preparing. The phone rang, Nora, hands shaking. He answered. Asterisk. Derek, the voice said. Calm, chilling, intimate. Do you remember the night you left me? Asterisk. He tried to speak, to apologize, but his own voice faltered. Static crackled through the line. Then a laugh, soft at first, then escalating into a chilling scream that seemed to come from every corner of the room simultaneously. Asterisk. Derek tried to flee, but the shadows twisted around his legs, holding him, slowing him, pressing against his chest. The phone dropped, ringing incessantly. Then the lights went out. In total darkness, he could hear her whispering, moving closer, her voice inside his skull. Asterisk. I am not gone. I am everywhere. Asterisk. By morning, neighbors reported screams. When authorities arrived, Derek was gone. Only the phone remained, displaying Naira and a recording of laughter that made grown men shiver. Ray's torment intensifies. Asterisk. Ray had tried to stay rational, denying what was happening. But each night, hallucinations became more vivid. Shadows of her face appeared on walls, distorted and grinning. The phone calls escalated. Sometimes they were whispers, sometimes they were screams. One night, the flames returned to his apartment stronger, more erratic, forming shapes that resembled him. Then him and Nera, then him alone, burning. The smell of smoke filled the room, though the fire left no mark. The phone rang. "Nera, you laughed at me," the voice whispered, soft yet deafening. "You thought no one would remember. I am memory itself." Ray could feel her presence behind him, cold and deliberate. He spun around, but the room was empty. Then, out of the corner of his eye, a shadow moved, impossible, flickering, alive. He tried to run, but the floor seemed to resist, slowing him down. He tripped, and the phone's screen glowed brightly in the darkness. Nera. By dawn, Ray had disappeared from his apartment. The police found the phone on the floor, still ringing, showing multiple missed calls from Nera. Mason's fear peaks. Mason, already teetering on the edge of sanity, found himself trapped in a nightmare he could not wake from. His apartment was full of shadows, mirrors reflecting not his own image but hers. Every time he touched a reflective surface, her pale face would appear closer, larger, staring into his soul. At exactly 3:07 a.m., the phone rang. "Nera." He answered. "Hello." A pause. Then, "I am coming for you, Mason. You can run, but the darkness follows." The room seemed to twist. Walls stretched, ceiling lowered. Shadows crawled across the floor, forming shapes of the night he had helped create. He screamed, but no sound came. Then he saw her in the corner, pale wet hair, clinging to her face, hollow eyes filled with rage. Mason tried to move, to escape, but the room itself seemed to push him back. The phone in his hand rang again. "I am everywhere," she whispered, "and nowhere. You cannot hide." Mason collapsed, covering his face, sobbing uncontrollably. The phone continued to ring, displaying Nera, her voice a constant echo in his head. Direct revenge begins. Nera's revenge was no longer limited to fear. She began to manipulate the world around them, bending reality. Derek, Ray, and Mason began receiving images on their phones. Photos of themselves asleep. Photos of them alone. Photos of the places they thought were safe. Every call, every shadow, every flicker of light reminded them that she was watching. Always, everywhere. Objects moved when no one was near. Doors unlocked themselves. Furniture shifted positions. And always, the phone rang. Each of them began to unravel psychologically. They could not eat, could not sleep, could not leave their homes. Their paranoia became hallucinations. Every sound, every flicker of light, every shadow was her. The first physical encounter. One night, Derek heard footsteps in his hallway. The apartment was empty, but the sound was real, deliberate. His phone rang. "Nera." He picked it up. "I am closer than you think," she whispered. The shadow moved along the wall, growing larger, more tangible. Derek could see a faint outline of a figure approaching. It stopped, just beyond the reach of light. Suddenly, the door burst open. The room was filled with a cold wind that seemed to push him back. A soft whisper filled his mind. Asterisk, you left me. You laughed. You thought I would never return. Asterisk, Derek fell to the ground, paralyzed with fear, unable to move. The phone continued to ring. Nira, psychological collapse. Asterisk, by now, Derek, Ray, and Mason were broken. Their minds were consumed by the calls, the shadows, the hallucinations. Cole was gone, taken completely by her vengeance. Every reflective surface in their homes displayed her image. Every sound was her whisper. Every phone call reminded them of the night they had abandoned her. Asterisk, the town around them began to notice. Neighbors reported screams, lights flickering, shadows moving against walls, and phones ringing in empty houses. Yet when authorities arrived, no one could find any evidence. Only the devices, always displaying Nara. Part 4 Climax Build Asterisk. Nara's presence became tangible. She no longer needed to speak, only through the phone. Shadows moved with purpose. Objects floated unnaturally, and doors opened and closed without touch. The remaining men realized they were being hunted, not just by memory, but by something unstoppable, something beyond comprehension. Asterisk, her revenge was methodical. She was punishing them psychologically and physically, ensuring that every fear, every guilt, every moment of that night would be relived over and over. Asterisk, by the end of Part 4, the remaining 3 men, Derek, Ray, and Mason, were not just afraid. They were aware that death, in some form, was approaching. The terror was escalating. The nightmare was real. Asterisk, Nara's revenge was no longer invisible. It was active, immediate, and inevitable. The call that came after death. Part 5. The night was darker than any the town had ever seen. The wind howled through empty streets, carrying a sense of impending doom. The stars were hidden, the moon covered in thick clouds, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Asterisk, Derek, Ray, and Mason had retreated to separate safe houses, each convinced they could outlast her. But Nara had long since transcended mere vengeance. She was everywhere in shadows, in whispers. In the very air they breathed. The phones rang simultaneously in all 3 homes. Nara, hands trembling. They answered. Derek heard her first. You thought hiding would save you. It won't. I am the shadow of your guilt, the echo of your cruelty. Ray's phone crackled with static. Then, you thought laughter could erase me. You were wrong. I remember everything. Mason's device vibrated violently. You thought control could protect you. Control is an illusion. I am reality. Derek's final encounter. Asterisk, Derek tried to flee into the night, but the shadows had already enveloped his apartment. The walls seemed to breathe, stretching and bending, closing in on him. His phone glowed with her name, Nira, ringing endlessly. A whisper came from every corner. Do you remember the night you left me? Do you feel it now? Asterisk, Derek screamed, trying to escape. But the shadows twisted into shapes of the past. The laughter of his friends, the terrified cries of Nara, the moments he had ignored. Each figure reached for him. Asterisk, he stumbled, falling to the floor. The shadows consumed him, and his last sight was her pale face emerging from the darkness, eyes hollow, staring, smiling. The phone's screen went dark. ringing, ending in silence. Derek was gone. Ray's inferno, Ray's home ignited spontaneously. Flames rose along the walls, shaped like faces he recognized, Nara's twisted and accusatory. The phone rang on the counter, displaying Nira. Asterisk, you thought it was just smoke, just shadows. Feel the fire, Ray. Feel your guilt burn as I do. Asterisk, he tried to escape, but the flames twisted unnaturally, forming barriers, blocking exits. Every movement he made seemed slower, heavier. Asterisk, a figure appeared in the center of the room, pale, soaked in darkness, eyes hollow and unblinking. Nira stepped closer, her lips curling into a silent scream. Asterisk, Ray screamed, flames licking at his skin, but they burned no flesh. The fire was an illusion, a psychological torment. The horror of facing Nira, the embodiment of all his past cruelties, paralyzed him completely. Asterisk, by dawn, the house was silent. No trace of flames remained. Only the phone lay on the floor, glowing faintly. Nira Ray was missing. Mason's confrontation, Mason's final encounter was the most intimate, most terrifying. He had barricaded himself in his apartment, but he knew it was futile. Every reflective surface displayed her face, closer, larger. Watching, the phone rang. Nira, I am the consequence of your choices. Mason, you cannot escape me. Asterisk, the shadows coalesced into her form, fully visible now, moving with purpose. Mason tried to speak, but words failed him. Asterisk, you left me, she whispered, voice resonating inside his mind. You laughed as I suffered. Now, you will feel it all. Asterisk, the room twisted. Walls compressed, floorboards cracked, ceiling lowered. Mirrors reflected her face inches from his own, hollow eyes boring into him. Every sound, every shadow, every flicker of light became her presence. Asterisk, Mason fell to his knees. The phone ringing incessantly. Glowing Nira, he covered his ears, trying to block the voice. But it was everywhere, in his skull, in the walls, in the very air. Asterisk, her form leaned closer. You cannot hide. You cannot escape. And I am here. Asterisk, Mason screamed as the darkness swallowed him. When morning came, he was gone. Only the phone remained, glowing faintly with her name. The town reacts. Asterisk, the town's unease reached a fever pitch. Authorities could not explain the disappearances, the screams, the haunted houses. People spoke in hushed tones about the girl who returned from death to punish the guilty. Every shadow became a threat. Every flicker of light, a warning. Asterisk, Mrs. Morgan remained vigilant, clutching the phone, waiting. She could feel her daughter's presence. Knowing that Nara's vengeance had been exacted, her justice carried out. Asterisk, and yet. Her voice came again, soft, almost tender, but filled with warning. Asterisk, greater than I am here, I remember. And anyone who wrongs the innocent will not escape. Asterisk, the town slept fitfully, aware that the horrors they had witnessed were only a fraction of the power that Nara now wielded. Shadows in rooms, whispers in phones, lights flickering, all were reminders that the girl who had been abandoned was no longer powerless. Resolution, asterisk, by the end of part 5. Derek, Ray, and Mason were gone. Cole had vanished earlier. Nara's revenge was complete for those who had caused her suffering. There was no escape. Asterisk, the phones in the empty homes remained, glowing faintly, displaying her name. Nah. Era asterisk. Mrs. Morgan looked at them, tears in her eyes, knowing that her daughter had returned, claimed justice, and vanished again, leaving only echoes. The town remained scarred, forever changed by the events that had transpired. Asterisk, and in the silence of the night, if someone listened carefully, they could hear her whisper through the wind, through the shadows, through the empty streets.